Lyon County. Of course, I know your father real well, and I've talked to him for hundreds of hours about basketball and so forth over the years. And I know he's in a nursing home here in Benton at Lake Haven. How's he doing?
He's doing real well for his age and mileage, I guess.
Now, he's in his 90s, isn't he?
He'll be 95 the first day of February.
Well, let's get back to our basic format, more or less. We generally ask the people to tell us their father and mother, put it on the tape. You know, the genealogists are strong in this area. If you don't give them something, they're a little peeved about it. So, your father's name was?
George Edwin Jones.
And your mother?
Sybil Hayden Wake.
Now, the Wake family, if I recall my Kentucky Pioneer history from Dr. Cherry's old grayback book, The Pioneer State of the West, was a rather noted family. Could you tell us some of the things they did?
They were a noted family. There were several lawyers and a doctor, and of course the family name is extinct.
Mm-hmm.
Even though my mother was awake before she married.
Yeah.
My great-great-grandfather was Dr. Ambrose W. Wake. He was one of the few graduates of Pennsylvania University. I have his medical degree hanging there on the wall, dated August 1827.
Oh, isn't that marvelous? Pennsylvania, of course, was the oldest school west of the Appalachians.
It's
1780, and the medical school started in 1799. I remember that much about it.
It was only in existence 11 years.
Uh-huh. At its height and glory, that is, with Daniel Drake there,
yes,
as I recall. Of course, Drake flitted about and started a lot of medical schools, and he had something to do with the University of Louisville.
Yes, and there was also another relative, Dr. Jones, that is a graduate of Washington University in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And they were connected some way or another.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so many Joneses, it'd be hard to trace them. I read once they were the third most common name, I believe it's that, in America. That's along about World War II. I think the Smiths were easily the winner because there's been every kind of Smith.
Well, I was told in my younger life that it has come down that in the beginning in the Garden of Eden, everybody was named Jones, and as they sinned, they turned them out and gave them a different name.
Well, that's a wonderful story. I'm glad to hear that. I've never heard that story before, but it sounds great. Do you know any further back? Do you remember your grandparents on either side?
Oh yes, very well. My grandfather Wake, my grandfather Jones, they were two characters. They were a couple of generations ahead of themselves. My Pappy Jones had 13 children.
Well, the tendency in those days for a lot of people was large families.
And he read the Courier Journal every day, and he could spell every word in it. So Mother asked him one day if he knew what a chafing dish was, and he said yes. And he spelled it and says, "Nice damn nuisance mankind ever had."
Well, I can see that he was kind of a character like, but that's what makes people interesting. And it would have been a rare and unusual family in that time to have read.
And my grandfather Wake was a unique character. He cursed quite a bit. Never did know he said a bad word.
He just wasn't aware of it.
No.
It was habitual.
he'd get by with murder. He was on the witness stand once as a character witness. And he was questioned, he was sworn in, what was his name, and as the usual procedure goes, and they said, Mr. Wake, do you know so-and-so? Name happened to be Doom. Yes, he knew him. Said, would you say his character's good or bad? He said, he always stammered. Says, good, bad, good, bad. Good. Son of a bitch always paid me. The attorney got him off the witness stand in a hurry.
Well, we would would like to ask you, did you go to school in what, Catawba?
Yes, I graduated from Catawba High School, 1937.
You remember any of the teachers you had in, I guess you went to grade school there too?
Yes, yes. The new school was built the year that I went to school. It was stucco. That was before the days of indoor plumbing. We had an out path and a building. And
Well, I grew up in that society. As a matter of fact, we didn't have electricity at our house near Hardin, the farm, till 47. You'd already come to Benton, and your husband was a physician before we ever got
came here in
electricity.
46.
Yeah. So, you know, without electricity, you really live about like Daniel Boone did, don't you?
That's right. We always had electricity and running water. The little town of Catawba was settled by an ex-governor of Ohio. And they went up on the mountain, it was a hill,
Mm-hmm.
and dug a reservoir, and that supplied us with water. And then they had a light plant that you had electricity from 5 in the afternoon until 8 o'clock the next morning, and 2 mornings a week where you could iron.
That reminds me of Hardin. Now, Mr. Cox built a little light plant there. I believe the year was 1950. And I've heard people say that they started the plant every evening about 5 o'clock, I guess. But on Monday was wash day. Now, Tuesday was ironing day, so they started it at noon on Tuesday.
Well, they didn't have washing machines. They did well to have an electric iron.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it was a great convenience. It
There was
wonderful.
no electric stoves. I can remember the first one we ever had.
Yes, our younger people found it hard to believe that even though you had money, there's many things you couldn't buy then because they weren't on the market.
I can remember when radios first came out with the earphones, and here in the World Series, ball games. They'd have 2 sets of earphones.
Yeah.
Everybody in town
I remember visiting.
would come to this one set. I believe it was an Atwater Kent.
You are probably right, because that was the #1 seller in the country up till
Then RCA came out.
the first electric set was a Majestic,
Yes, I can remember those.
and that was 1928, and it had even in cities like Chicago, and my dad lived there a little while. there were battery sets,
Oh, sure.
and they didn't just have one battery. There would be this Atwater Kent was sort of a long, narrow machine, not too tall, maybe
Tabletop.
yeah, about a foot tall, but in lengthwise it was maybe a yard.
And about like,
Yeah, that's right.
and a
Well-
big speaker on top of it, didn't it?
Well, the later models did. Now, of course, at first it simply had the earphones, and the first one I ever saw just had earphones, and a man named Rob Jackson owned it, and people would go there on Saturday nights to listen to the radio, and he'd rigged up a contraption some way where you could plug in 6 sets of earphones, and they took those earphones apart, and that made 12 people could listen. I kind of liked it because, you know, the cord wasn't very long where these earphones came apart, so you could sit next to your best girlfriend and kind of legally get to sort of cheek to cheek. You know, back then you didn't.
That's
just...
what you call sparking.
Yeah. Well, you know the language. That's just wonderful. All right, tell us, do you remember any of your teachers?
Yes, there was some from Marshall County. Holland Lackey, Herbert Smith, who married Reba Roberts from here.
I remember him. He was in the field of agriculture
Yes.
in later years. Yeah. Herbert Smith, very fine fellow.
Then the oldest one was Mr. Carpenter. I think he came from up around Elizabethtown or somewhere. He really was an educator in his day.
Now, what did your father do? Did he?
He had a hardware, implement, building materials, grocery.
It was really a
Feed,
general
seed.
store.
Well, we didn't have the undertaking business, nor the flour mill, or the dry goods store, but they were all in the family
Yeah.
and the bank.
Yeah. Oh, I used to go over there, and I've forgotten. It must have been about 1946 beginning, and I would sell basketball games at Lyon County High School, and we'd get several sponsors there in town. I remember one of them. There were Wiseman brothers that had a restaurant.
Yes. Jimmy Wiseman up here is a relative.
Yeah, he's a son or a grandson or something or other of the family that.
A son of Hart. It was
Yeah.
Hart Baby and Hal Honey. And their father was Mr. Coley. He had a grocery store.
Oh, we had some wonderful times back in those days. I enjoyed it, being the first person that had ever broadcast any basketball down here. Paducah Tillman had started broadcasting its football games in 1930, but they'd never broadcast any basketball, even at Tillman, when I went there in '45. So I started basketball broadcasting in...
Yeah, rip the netting.
All right, let's...
Old Ed Kello, Otis Denning.
Wonderful names, great people.
Oh, and Hall Allen.
Oh, wasn't Hall great?
He was.
He was a good historian.
He really was.
I treasure his little book. What was it? Center of Conflict or something like that.
I believe
the
it
Jackson
was.
Purchase. I still have that.
What was his character?
Oh, the one that he portrayed as being the fellow that was the average Joe, I guess, and didn't understand a lot of things.
That really was the comic.
Yeah.
He wanted to get at somebody. He took him up.
Well, let's find out how you came to meet Dr. McClain.
Well, he had a cousin, Morris Adkins, that was a health officer in Lyon County. I think of course, they came from Tennessee, and Dr. Adkins was at Murray Normal College as a school physician part-time.
Well, that was a typical name. All teachers' colleges at one time were called normal schools. I don't know why, but that's the word they used.
So my husband came up to visit with his family, to visit that family, and the daughter was my best friend, so she got me a date that night with my husband, to be. That was in 1937. I was sweeping, cleaning out potato bins in the grocery store. I had to work, but I didn't get paid. And I never will forget, I was a very husky young girl, very athletic, very muscular, weighed 150 pounds.
Did you like to ride horses?
Yes, I was a very good tennis player at one time. I had an uncle, Tiny Jones, that was a coach. And he helped me, and we had a tennis court in the backyard at home. And I did a lot of athletics. Started playing basketball in the 8th grade. I wasn't fit for anything except get in somebody's way and knock them down. And I never did get on the regular team because they outlawed it. But we had those old big black bloomers.
Uh-huh.
They wouldn't let me in very often, so I'd pack me a lunch and put in one of those legs and sit on the bench and eat.
Oh, you have some wonderful stories.
Oh, we ice skated. My father was a very good ice skater, and whatever he did, I thought I could do. The lake would freeze, and we would all go down there, and the railroad track was there. Coal would fall off, and we'd build up a fire, and we did figure skating. When I was 6 years old, he bought me a pair of overalls. Of course, we didn't have blue jeans and stuff like that, and I thought it was awful to put on boys' clothes, but I had to stay warm. A pair of roller skates, ice skates, and a tricycle. So I lit out.
You were equipped.
I was always a tomboy. One of the first things I ever had was a BB gun. And I was little, I couldn't reach the trigger, so he had the carpenter at the store, saw the stock of it out. And I shot up every tin can in the country. And then I went from that to a 410, from that to a 20 gauge. He used to take me out of school to go bird hunting. Said I'd learn more out in the woods than I would in the school. So the teachers let me off.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to this date with George McClain. Now,
Oh, he never did like to be called George. His family called him Clay. And when he got in medical school and in fraternity, they had Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and he was named Happy.
Well, now, you met him before he went to medical school.
Oh, yes, he was first year at Murray.
Uh-huh.
And I was senior in high school.
Uh-huh. Well, how long was it before you married?
7 years.
So he finished at Murray and then...
No, he didn't have to graduate. He just had to have 3 years.
So he went to
He
medical school after
They got
3
mixed
years.
up on his age, and he entered medical school when he was 19 years old, and they were supposed to be 21. And, of course, they were on the quarter system. And he had his MD degree at the time that he was 21.
So he had graduated when you married.
Oh, yes.
Did you marry shortly after that? The war was about to
He
come
mar-
on, wasn't
He
it?
graduated in September, yes, and we married the following April.
Well, did he know Dr. Miller, I wonder?
Not until we came to Benton.
Mm-hmm. They were great friends afterwards.
Very good friends.
Well, let's see. You married, and then he got his he got his medical degree, and I suppose he had to intern somewhere.
Well, he started an internship at St. Thomas Hospital in Nashville, but he wasn't getting to do what he wanted to, and this obstetrician advised him to resign it, and he would get him in the city hospital there where he would get more things to do. And the sisters wouldn't release him. In those days, a doctor could practice without an internship and get their license. So AMA wouldn't let him go into another hospital until he had been out a year. So he went to Harlan County, Kentucky, and did contract practice for Peabody Coal Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
That was in February, and then we married in April. And I went to Harlan County as a bride, lived in a coal camp.
Well, how did you like that?
Were
you afraid?
Well, no, they would take care of you. They would come by every day. Doc, is anybody bothering you? There is, we'll go squirrel hunting.
Yeah.
And you know what that is.
Yeah.
I liked them. we lived in company boarding house, I guess you'd call it. And they, the first frozen foods I'd ever seen were served to us there. And of course they did home deliveries, and they had office hours. They had a good little hospital there. Well, I didn't have anything to do, so I'd go with him. And I think the second night I was there, I helped him deliver a baby. He said, "Here, you clean this up." And I didn't know what a little baby was or anything about childbirth, but I learned.
You learned in a hurry. Yeah.
I sat down on the floor and gave that baby a bath.
All right, you completed there, and then he had to go into the U.S. Armed
No,
Forces?
we went from there to Princeton.
Oh,
And
well, you're
he
getting
was in-
close to Qatar
Yes.
then, right?
And we were in private practice there. And he had a patient that was injured in the rock quarry there, and he got a reaction to sulfur drug. That's when that had just first come out. And of course he didn't have his internship, and he had a fraternity brother that was in Mobile, Alabama at City Hospital. And they, of course, Mobile was just a shipbuilding center and a port, and there was openings there for an internship at City Hospital. And after this patient had gotten this reaction, he got scared on malpractice, because I don't think he had malpractice insurance then. And we went from there, from Princeton to Mobile, and he did his internship at City Hospital there, which was a very, very good one. And from there, they turned him down for the Army several times, and he applied for commission with a waiver, and he went into the Army from there.
Mm-hmm.
And his tours of duty, he wasn't in the States 6 months until he was overseas for limited duty. He went to England. He was in the General Hospital. From there to the continent. Well, the war was over in Europe, and they trained him to go to the Pacific, and he went from there to the Pacific. Of course, the war was over with Japan just after they got out of the Canal Zone, and their ship was blacked out, and they missed their orders telling them to turn into San Francisco. And he wound up in Manila, no orders. And when he got to Manila, they sent him to Batangas, and he liked to have never gotten home from the Pacific. And then when he did...
They dropped the atomic bomb, and the war ended much more rapidly than anyone anticipated.
Yes,
Of which you were deeply thankful, no doubt.
yes. He was overseas 33 months.
Do you have any idea how he came to choose Benton?
Yes. We wanted to be near our families, which they lived in Weakley County, Tennessee. My family lived in Lyon County. We didn't want to live there, but near here. But Dr. Washburn hadn't been dead too long, and Elizabeth Ordway told us about it.
Mm-hmm.
We went to several places, but this seemed to be the best.
Did you ever regret coming to Marshall County?
No. He kind of wanted to go back and for more training and become an orthopedic surgeon, because that's what he did mostly in the service, and that's the main thing that he got on his internship in Alabama. And he liked it very much, and this doctor was very, very nice to him in Mobile. And he got about 3 years' work in 1 year in orthopedics.
Now, you came a little before Dr. Miller, didn't you?
No, Dr. Miller came about a year before we did.
Mm-hmm.
We came here in August 1946.
And there was a period there when Dr. McClain and Dr. Miller were the only two physicians?
Under 80 years old.
Yeah.
There was two in Sharp, two in Calvert City, and there was two here,
Mm-hmm.
but they were old.
Yeah.
Dr. Caulfield and
We'd moved from Hardin to Benton
Yes.
by that time.
And Dr. Kennedy, I believe.
Hmm. Well, there was no hospital here.
No,
And,
there wasn't even an X-ray in the county when we came here.
so Dr. McClain and you and I don't know whether Miller had anything to do with it or not, but more or less supplied the county with hospital service until the hospital opened. Didn't you have
We
a
built,
few rooms? Where
yes, we built a clinic,
Was it
and it opened in 1950,
obstetrics at least?
primarily.
Hmm.
It was about like cafeteria style being at home, but you were
Yeah.
visiting.
Uh-huh.
And non-contagious. We'd keep fractures or something not non-contagious.
Hmm. Yeah. And of course he bought an X-ray machine, and
Yes, it cost $1,500.
that's a lot of money then, though.
Well, getting one, of course, we had to borrow the money to buy it. And the KMA was meeting in Paducah, and I said, "Happy, you go buy an X-ray." "Oh, we can't afford that." I said, "We can't afford not to have one."
Yeah.
It was very, very simple, but it worked.
Well, you just kept working and helping him till you got your license as a nurse, didn't you?
On Wavier as an LPN.
Uh-huh. Well, you know, some of those people knew more than some that went to school. You have to learn, maybe
I
like
had to
Abraham Lincoln did. You know, he
had
could
the
read and write,
experience.
though he didn't go to, I guess you could say he didn't go to grade school, did he, to
No.
amount to anything. But he wrote some of the greatest English that's ever been written. Well, let's see. What was Benton like when you first came here? You had grown up in a town even smaller, I guess you
About
could say.
same size.
Or about the same size. in those
Benton
days.
grew and Qatar didn't.
So,
But TVA made this county.
Mhm.
Well, in fact, the dam.
Yeah.
I remember when it was started.
so you really weren't in a different culture particularly. It was about the same from one county to the other.
There's
So
quite a bit of difference in them.
there was?
Yes. Marshall County was, they were more backward than Lyon County.
Well, we were at one time, I believe, on the
One-
list as the 115th poorest county. Now, they're just 120, as you know.
Yes.
So, it was a poor agricultural county, and that's about all there was in the purchase. So, they really didn't have anything till after World War II, and the dam was built, and the plants started coming in.
But we came in with them.
And of course they built the state parks at that time, and all that together helped to improve the economy in this area. Now very quickly, we only have a couple more minutes time, but I want to get in Betsy. You had a child.
Yes. We were married nearly 10 years when she was born,
Uh-huh.
our only child.
And do you have a grandchild?
She has one daughter, Whitney, is 10 years old.
Does she like horses too?
Not particularly.
Not like her mother did.
No.
I notice here on your dining table a stirrup, which is being put to good use as a napkin holder.
Yes. I bet I've given 50 of those things away. I bought them at the hardware store in Lexington.
And
I
you-
believe gave quarter piece for them.
there's that much wood in it for toothpicks.
And then refinished them.
Well, do you have any particular stories that you'd like to close with, or anything you'd like to say before we have to wrap it up?
Well, I'm just glad to be ambulatory and to be as well blessed as I have been and to have so many friends.
Well, you've made a lot of friends, we know that, and of course, I guess as Solomon said, if you want to have friends, you need to be friendly, and you and your husband contributed a great deal to Marshall County, and I think they tried, perhaps imperfectly, to return the love you gave them toward you and to your family. We wish for you many more happy years.
Thank you. I enjoy living. I like to travel. I've been fortunate enough to have been in all 50 states,
Great.
several foreign countries, but there's no place to me like Kentucky.
I agree with you there 100%. Well, thank you very much, Connie McClain of Poplar Street in Benton. This is Ray Mofield. We return you now to our studio.